going to have a little look at constructing the front lining part of our Libertas. That's the part with the external zipper in it. So I have my zipper with my pull already fitted. Now if anybody needs the video for how to fit the pull, give me a shout and I will load it up. I haven't done one for this particular video, but this particular sew along, but I do have one that I use for the standard, so I can load that up if you need me to. So I've cut this down to 10¼ inches long. It has to be 10¼ inches long from one end to the other. Now with this open end, if you really want to, pop a couple of stitches through the very end to stop it from opening up. That is helpful. It's not an absolute essential, but it's helpful. Just do them close to the end, close to the very end of the zipper. It just stops it opening up when you're stitching over it. And you will have your two little zipper tabs that you've cut. Now what we're going to do is we're going to turn the zipper over so that the zipper tab is facing down. So we've got the back of the zipper facing right sides up. We're going to take our oh, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. No, I'm not. Oh, no, I'm not. Sorry, it didn't come to anything. We're going to take our first zipper tab, and the zipper tab is 1¼ high by 1½ wide. And we're going to put that 1¼ inch side against the very end, and we're laying our zipper tab right sides down. This doesn't seem intuitive because it's an unusual way to put a zipper in its zipper tabs. It's not what you would normally do. So trust me, the zipper is right sides down and the tab is right sides down. We're going to take it to the machine and we're just going to stitch across the end to secure the tab to the zipper at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. My zipper is quite frayed. If you want to use a cigarette lighter across the end of that just to stop it from fraying, you can do. Pull that zipper tab open. So you can see now that I've stitched it across there, and now I'm just going to pull it open, and I'm just going to top stitch close to the edge there. I usually top stitch at 1/8 inch just to keep it open. If you want to use your iron and press it open, that's fine. Don't backstitch at the beginning or the end because that will be caught up in the next lot of stitching that we do. We're going to repeat the same process at the other end of the zipper. So with the zipper still right sides down, so the pull is underneath, we'll take our tab and we'll lay it across the end, right sides down also. And again, we're just going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam allowance just to secure the tab in place. So you can see that's in place, and then I'm just going to open it up. Now these bits of zipper tab have got interfacing on them only because I did a bulk fuse. Normally I don't bother interfacing zipper tabs. I don't think it's necessary, but these ones have been because it was a whole piece of fabric that I fused interfacing to and then cut my pieces out afterwards. I just think it's easier to do that. It's a little more wasteful though. So now we have our zipper, and on the wrong side of the zipper we have the right side of our zipper tab showing. So this is back to front from whatever it is you would normally do when you're putting zipper tabs in. So do be aware, this is not a mistake in the pattern. This is the way it's meant to be done. So we're going to take our front lining bottom panel. So that's the panel that looks like this. This has been interfaced with woven fusible interfacing. If you're choosing to use fusible fleece as your stabilizer for this, if you're not going to use foam, you want to use fusible fleece, now is the time to fuse your fusible fleece to the wrong side of this panel. You need to position it centrally so that there's a gap around all of the edges. The template for the fusible fleece is 3/8 inch smaller than the actual panel, so you can position it centrally and pop it on now. I'm not going to be using fusible fleece, I'm going to use foam for this, but this is the time to put your fusible fleece onto that panel. So I'm going to lay my panel right sides up, and I'm going to take my zipper, and I am going to lay my zipper, let me just double check that I'm doing this the right way around. I am. Right sides up across the top of my panel, across that straight edge. Now my zipper pull, when the zipper is closed, is towards the right, so to my right. I think on the screen it probably looks the other way around, but it isn't, it's towards the right. Again, that won't seem quite right to you, but I promise you it is. Now, if you want to clip that in place or pin it, then you can do. I just tend to eyeball it, make sure it's nice and central, which it should be. Your zipper tab should come pretty much to the edges, and then I'm going to stitch that in place along that top straight edge using a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. I very often make my zipper tabs just a little bit bigger and then cut them down. I find it's easier, but it's up to you. I find it's not, people say, oh, it's wasteful, but it's not wasteful. It's wasteful of a tiny little bit of fabric, not a lot. When you get to where your zipper pull is, raise your foot up. My zipper pull doesn't want me, that's better. And pull your zipper pull out of the way because you don't want wonky stitching. And now that's secured onto you can see my zipper is on the right side of my fabric with the zipper facing right sides up. So now I'm going to take my front lining top panel, I'm going to lay it down, but I'm going to turn it upside down so that the curved edges are facing me. I'm going to take that bottom piece that I've already sewn my zipper to, and I'm going to unfold my zipper from the bottom piece, and I'm going to lay it across the straight edge of this panel. Again, you can clip it if you want to or pin it in place. I don't. I just move it over to the machine and stitch it on. And again, a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. A scant 1/4 inch is just less than a 1/4 inch. Make sure you keep your zipper pull out of the way so that your stitching stays nice and straight. Pull the zipper pull so that it's the other side, not in my way. All the way across. Back stitching at the ends just to secure. Then I'm going to, with that panel right sides down, I'm just going to press so that the sides of the zipper are nice and flat, so the seam allowance is away from the zipper. Now, I'm a great one for pressing zippers before I actually put them in. A lot of people struggle with wonky zippers, and I think that if you press your zipper tape before you actually even start to attach it to anything, you're much less likely to get a wonky zipper tape. So I'm just going to turn that right sides up and just make sure that I haven't got any puckers or gathers. I'm just going to give that a press on this side as well. Your fusible fleece, if you've used it, should not be within the seam allowance. It will be sitting just below where that zipper's attached. You don't need fusible fleece on this top piece. It'll get too bulky if you put fusible fleece on the top piece, so don't do that. So I've got my zipper inserted into my front lining. I'm going to take my front panel and I'm going to lay my front panel over the zipper. And what you need to, the top and the bottom will not match. What you need to make sure is that the sides are matched. I've done this so that I've created the pattern pieces so that the top and bottom linings are too long. It helps because a scant quarter of an inch is not an exact measurement. So if you use a slightly bigger scant quarter of an inch or a slightly less scant quarter of an inch, this won't fit. So I've made it bigger and you can trim away what's left. If you choose to use foam for your clutch, then you will need your bottom part of your lining to be longer, so that's why it's left longer this way. So basically I'm positioning it so that the sides are level, and the sides will be level, but the top and the bottom will have a little bit extra. That's as it should be. My zipper is centrally within that zipper aperture that we created, and I'm now going to find my zipper foot, because I need to top stitch around my zipper. Now, some people like to use double-sided tape to secure their zipper to make sure that it doesn't move. I'm not a huge fan of that. I just prefer to have my zipper laid in place, and I mean, if you want to put up a couple of clips either side just to hold the lining and the exterior together, then please do. I just don't. I find it's a lot easier for me to just move it from where I've positioned it over to my machine and stitch. So now we're going to stitch all the way around the outside of the zipper aperture at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Be careful you don't go over your zipper pull. Leave long threads at the beginning and the end, because you know where we're going. We're going to bury those threads. I'm just going to swivel that around a little bit so you can see me better. So I haven't changed my stitch length. So I'm just going to start stitching. So I've got long thread on the top and the bottom. I'm just going to pop my needle in so that I know where I'm going, and I'm going to carefully stitch around the outside of my zipper aperture, which will secure my zipper and my front lining in place. Take it slowly. You want it to look tidy. And using a zipper foot is definitely a must for this, because there's not a massive gap between the edge of the zipper aperture and your handmade tag. I'm just going to pull my zipper pull out of the way so I don't get any wonkiness as I go past it. Take it slowly. This is the exterior of your bag. It's important that you have good stitching so that it looks nice. I often see posts in the bag groups about how can I make my bags look posher? How can I get a really smart finish? And I really do believe it's just about taking your time. Top stitching is something that's not easy to do well. Once you know you can do it, then you're all right, and it's practice really. But I believe, and I really do believe, that doing it slowly is far better than rushing at it. And some of us are fast sewers. I am a fast sewer. I like to sew everything at the speed of light, but top stitching, I don't. So when you get to the end of the aperture, turn your work round and pivot, and then come slowly over that zipper. And if you're using a nylon zipper, you shouldn't have too many issues going right the way across it. The needle will just slip down between the teeth on the zipper. If you're using a metal zipper, the best thing to do would be to remove a couple of teeth at the very ends of the zipper so that you're not actually going across a metal zipper. However, that may be the proper way of doing it. What most people do, and certainly what I would do if I was using a metal zipper, would be to hand crank and very carefully wiggle my needle between the teeth, because pulling teeth out's a pain in the neck. Get my zipper pull out of the way. Go all the way around to the very end. And again, I'm going to try and land back in the hole that I started with. There we go. Trim off my threads. And again, I'm going to take my threads from the front of my work through, using the next hole along to the back of my work. If you wanted a really soft Libertas, you don't actually have to put any additional stabilizer in at all if you don't want to. I made one, the first one, the black one I made, I didn't put any in because I wanted to see what it would do without any. Now, I've tied those off. If you're worried about those showing, you can take those very ends and just thread them through so that they are actually between the, let me just show you, so that they then come out here between the, I just pulled them through the zipper, so they're between the lining and the exterior fabric, and you'll never see those ends again. That's where they go. So we now have a zipper in our front, in the front of our bag, and I will come back to you. We've got a couple of other bits to do before we add foam to this and we start our major construction, but we're going to do the pockets and we're also going to do the strap connector. So that's what we're going to do next.